So friends, it was another busy day in court today as federal judges again take the Trump administration to task for violating the constitutional rights of human beings. Let's talk about that because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, let's take on two related legal developments in court cases today. The first is a new ruling by D.C. Federal District Court Judge James Boasberg. And in that new ruling, Judge Boasberg denied the Trump administration's request that he revisit and withdraw, essentially just throw out his prior order, his temporary restraining order, prohibiting the Trump administration from any further deportations of Venezuelan migrants. And the second related legal development, virtually simultaneously while Judge Boasberg was issuing his new order and ruling, the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals was hearing oral argument in whether Judge Boasberg's original temporary restraining order was lawful and should remain in place or was unlawful and should be revoked, terminated, thrown out. And there was one statement made by one of the three appellate court judges who made up the panel who heard today's oral argument in that appeal. One statement by one judge that, frankly, gave me justice goosebumps. But before we turn to what that statement is, let's start with the new reporting on Judge Boasberg's new ruling. This from the New York Times. Headline, Judge maintains block on deportations of Venezuelans under wartime law. Judge James Boasberg's order says that the Venezuelan immigrants should have the opportunity to challenge the accusation by the Trump administration that they were members of a gang. And that article begins, a federal judge on Monday kept in place his ruling barring the Trump administration from using a powerful wartime statute to summarily deport a group of Venezuelan immigrants whom officials have accused of being members of a violent street gang. In a 37-page order, the judge, James Boasberg, said the order should remain in place so that the Venezuelan immigrants could have the opportunity to challenge accusations that they belong to the gang Tren de Aragua before the Trump administration can fly them out of the country under the wartime law known as the Alien Enemies Act. The Alien Enemies Act, Judge Boasberg wrote, arguably envisions that those caught up in its web must be given the opportunity to seek such review. Judge Boasberg, who serves as the chief judge of the Federal District Court in Washington, issued an initial order on March 15, temporarily barring the administration from using the act to deport scores of Venezuelans to a prison in El Salvador with little or no due process. And friends, before we have a look at just a little bit of Judge Boasberg's new ruling and order, I want to read one thing that one judge said during the appeals court argument today when Donald Trump's DOJ lawyers were essentially arguing that these Venezuelans that they snatched up, threw on a plane, and sent to a prison in El Salvador, not even Venezuela, that these people have virtually no due process rights, which frankly is offensive to our Constitution. Here is what Appeals Court Judge Patricia Millet said. Get ready for the headline. Headline, Nazis got better treatment. Judge says of Trump administration's Alien Enemies Act deportations. And here's a little more of what Judge Millet said. The point here was that there were plane loads of people. There were plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act. So friends, I think it's fair to say that in today's argument in the Court of Appeals, things didn't go so good for the Trump administration. But now let's turn to Judge Boasberg's new ruling. I promise I'm not going to read too much of it, just a few paragraphs so you get the flavor of what Judge Boasberg said, how he ruled, and why he ruled that way. In the case of JGG et al. And others, plaintiffs, those are the Venezuelan migrants, versus Donald J. Trump and others, defendants, memorandum opinion. In the pre-dawn hours of Saturday, March 15, 5 Venezuelan non-citizens being held in Texas by the Department of Homeland Security sought emergency relief in this court. They justifiably feared that, in a matter of hours, they might be removed from the country pursuant not to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, but instead the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a law last invoked in the wake of Pearl Harbor as the nation was preparing for a world war. That act authorizes the president to summarily remove natives, citizens, denizens, or subjects of a hostile nation or government when there is declared war against it or when it has perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States an invasion or predatory incursion. And then, friends, helpfully, Judge Boasberg puts the exact language of the Alien Enemies Act in his ruling, and I'm just going to quote the first sentence of that law, of the act. Whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, strike one. The act doesn't apply because there is no declared war. Who gets to declare war? Only Congress. For anyone scoring at home, pull up the Constitution, read Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. Only Congress gets to declare war. There is no declaration of war, so this act doesn't apply. That is one fatal aspect of Trump and his DOJ's argument. But wait, there's more. Whenever there is a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government, strike two. We have not been attacked or invaded by the government of Venezuela. That is a second basis to reject what Trump's DOJ is arguing. Let's finish up that first sentence. So if there is a declared war or there is an invasion of the United States by a foreign nation or government, and the president makes public proclamation of the event, all natives, citizens, denizens, or subjects of the hostile nation or government, being of the age of 14 years and upward, who shall be within the United States and not actually naturalized, shall be liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. And now, friends, let's turn to just some of the reasons that Judge Boasberg concludes that Trump loses, that he, Judge Boasberg, will not withdraw, revoke, throw out his prior temporary restraining order. Plaintiffs, the Venezuelan immigrants, plaintiffs' contention that any action taken pursuant to the proclamation is unlawful because, despite the president's determination otherwise, Tren de Aragua is not a foreign nation or government, and its actions, however heinous, do not amount to an invasion or a predatory incursion. And the judge goes on to say, plaintiffs are likely to succeed on another equally fundamental theory. Before they may be deported, they are entitled to individualized hearings to determine whether the act applies to them at all. As the government, the DOJ attorneys, as the government itself concedes, the awesome power granted by the act may be brought to bear only on those who are, in fact, alien enemies. And the Supreme Court and this circuit have long maintained that federal courts are equipped to adjudicate that question when individuals threatened with detention and removal challenge their designation as such. Because the named plaintiffs dispute that they are members of Tren de Aragua, they may not be deported until a court has been able to decide the merits of their challenge. But friends, there's one more short passage I want to take up in Judge Boasberg's new ruling because it directly rebuts this nonsense, this blather, this bullshit that we've been hearing from Donald Trump that Judge Boasberg just wants murderers to roam free in the United States. First of all, I know Judge Boasberg. I worked with Judge Boasberg when he was a federal homicide prosecutor at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. I supervised Judge Boasberg. I tried murder cases with Judge Boasberg shoulder to shoulder. And when I hear Donald Trump say he just wants killers to run roughshod over the American people, first of all, Judge Boasberg put a lot of killers behind bars, and he did it in accordance with the rule of law and the Constitution, always protecting the rights of each defendant he prosecuted. But listen to this short paragraph where Judge Boasberg seems to respond, not directly, to Donald Trump's ridiculous assertion that the judge just wants killers to roam free on the streets of America. So here the judge is referring to his two temporary restraining orders. The first was oral, the second was written. And the judge says, neither order required the government, the Trump administration, to release a single individual from its custody. Neither order prevented the government from apprehending anyone pursuant to the just published proclamation. And neither order prevented the government from deporting anyone, including plaintiffs, through authorities other than the proclamation, such as the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, which, if followed, and if the Trump administration gave people that they intended to deport notice an opportunity to be heard so a judge could rule that, yes, they're subject to deportation, Judge Boasberg said they could have deported these people anyway, provided they complied with the Constitution. But they didn't comply with the Constitution. So what we just heard there in that passage from Judge Boasberg is the judge telling the Trump administration, look, y'all can do it, but you've got to do it right. You've got to do it lawfully. You've got to do it constitutionally. And you know why? You know why. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. Please hang in there. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.